Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Cross, as many of you know, and I'm the Director of Education with CAHME. We want to welcome you today to a very special CAHME session featuring the University of Michigan. Michigan is one of our first CAHME accredited programs and also a long-standing program with the mentorship program. The University of Michigan was not just among the first programs accredited by CAHME, but the leadership was essential to CAHME's formation. Before CAHME was founded, Michigan and others worked with a consultant to create an annual report process, which was found so helpful that the comprehensiveness and effectiveness of the instrument was such that several university administrators commended it to the attention of recognized accredited organizations. That was in 1964, which eventually led to the founding of the commission in 1968. Michigan luminaries who impacted CAHME include Dr. R.W. Fleming, the president of the University of Michigan, John Griffith, who used his reputation to make the case to Congress about the support for this nascent field of graduate programs in health administration. Griffith described the organization, now known as CAHME, as a major force in improving the quality of health services administration education. George Pickett of the Michigan was an early board member. Kyle Grazer served on the CAHME board through 2015, and today Richard Hirth is on our Standards Council. These are just a few of the many contributors from Michigan, dating back more than half of a century. What are we going to look at today is another innovation by the team at the University of Michigan, the Summer Enrichment Program, which has recently been relaunched as the SEP-HEALTHSpark program. During this session, please utilize the chat feature to ask questions, and we will address questions at the end during the Q&A. Since 1986, the University of Michigan Summer Enrichment Program has trained and prepared future healthcare leaders of the community in public health and healthcare to eliminate racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic health inequalities. Relaunching in 2004 as the Summer Enrichment Program in Health Equity and Leadership Training in Healthcare and Public Health, SEP-HEALTHSpark, this 7-week summer experience is designed to enhance undergraduate students' understanding of health equity while exposing them to careers in public health and healthcare delivery. SEP-HEALTHSpark serves as a pathway to graduate school, supporting its students' further education and training in the field. A little bit more history. It was founded in 1986 by Dr. Richard Lichtenstein to identify and train future leaders of healthcare organizations who strive to eliminate health inequalities, and we're gracious enough to have him here today with us. The SEP alumni have become leaders in the health field in hospitals, major insurance companies, local and state health departments, FQHCs, and academia. There's 714 program alumni, more than 90% have completed graduate study, and 131 attended graduate school at the University of Michigan's HMP program. Then a little bit more about why we are here today. One of the goals of the presentation today is to hear how Michigan was able to successfully meet criterion 2A2 for CAHME. I won't read the whole criteria out loud to you. You can read it there on the screen. And although it's not one of our most commonly missed criterion at 12% at partially met, not met, it is definitely a criteria that programs are continually trying to address and improve upon. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to first our facilitator today, our very own Dr. Anthony Stanowski, the president and CEO of CAHME.
Melissa, thank you very much for that introduction, and really a warm welcome to our folks at the University of Michigan today. I know in my own graduate studies, reading John Griffith's books were part of what we were required reading, and just thinking about the long-term impact of your program is phenomenal. We've got a great group of presenters here today, kind of reflecting the totality of this program, from its founder to its ultimate impact and its successes in there. And what I'll do at this point is ask each of the presenters to introduce themselves from left to right. So we'll start with Charlita.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlita Daniels, and I am the Associate Director for the Residential Master's Program, so our MPH and Masters of Health Services Administration students at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. And I also serve as the director of SEP-HEALTHSpark starting this year.
Hello, I'm Denise Anthony. I am a professor in health management and policy and the Rubin Chair of the department. So happy to be here.
So I'm next. Hi, everybody. My name is Rich Lichtenstein, and I'm a retired faculty member from the School of Public Health and Health Management and Policy. And I'm also the founder of what I called at the beginning SEP, and I directed that program for 30 years.
Good afternoon. I think I'm next. So I am Denise Brooks-Williams, and I am a proud alum of the SEP, formerly known as SEP program. Back in the 80s, I also attended the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan, and currently I serve as the Executive Vice President and CEO of Care Delivery Operations for Henry Ford Health System. Happy to be here today.
And I'm Bill Manns, and I too am an alum of SEP. I may or may not have been in the very first class of the summer enrichment program, which actually changed my life. I'm currently the president and CEO of Bronson Healthcare. We're a 4-hospital system in Southwest Michigan. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Thank you all for doing that. And the format that we're going to go today is not slides. So I think, Melissa, we can take them off at this point, and this way we can kind of get good looks at all of our presenters today, or all of our panel today. Rich, let me start with you. The SEP-HEALTHSpark, what was the spark behind you? And sorry to kind of go with the pun there, but what was the spark behind you starting this program? What was the background?
So thank you, Anthony. I grew up in the Bronx in the 50s and 60s, and I was very aware of the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement and the anti-war and Vietnam movement. And I was very much interested in creating social change. And I eventually got my master's in public health at the School of Public Health at Michigan. And while I was completing a PhD, I thought about a bunch of things, but one was this. I had this insight at one point. I was teaching courses on the US healthcare system, and I would always talk about the really terribly deficient supply of African American and Latino students in medical schools. And I would do that every year. And one year, as I was saying that, I looked around the room and it was like, we don't have very much diversity in this room either. And what can I do to try to improve our ability to address health inequities in the United States? And I thought, well, if I could find a way to get students who are interested in eliminating health disparities into the school, into either our program or programs around the country, I felt that that would make a big impact, because they would be in charge of lots of important organizations and might really organize things so that they could eliminate health disparities. So that was the background. And 30 years of my direction, and then another 6 years after I retired. One of the other questions you were going to ask me is about the impact. And I can tell you there are well over 700 people graduated from their program. And it's amazing to me. I never thought it would last 30 years. I thought if we could go 2 years, that would be great. And then, I keep in touch with a lot of the alums, and it's amazing what kind of important positions they occupy around the country.
Rich, hearing you talk, I mean, what comes to my mind is the phrase "be the change," and you looked around and you went, "Hey, there's some issues in here. How can I be the change that kind of influences something?" You've got to be really proud of where the program's kind of gone from that insight.
Yeah, it's definitely the best thing I did in my career, and I've done some other good things too. So.
Oh, that's neat, Rich. So you talk about the best thing you did in the career and the impact you made. I mean, I think we're really fortunate today that not only, do we have you as the founder, but we've got 2 people who are really well-known healthcare professional executives who participated in the SEP program. And so Denise Brooks-Williams, let me go to you just so we don't confuse Denise's at this point. So you were an alum of the SEP program.
Yeah.
How did participating in that created the spark, if you would? I'll kind of stay with the spark. Created the spark to kind of change your career, your outlook.
Well, I think it was a spark, right? So I will say when I was at the university, I went to the University of Michigan as an undergraduate student. I happened to be working in the Department of Epidemiology, which was next door at that time to the main school. And a professor that I was working for kind of said, oh, there's this amazing program around, careers in healthcare administration. I will say honestly, at that time, I did not technically know what careers in healthcare administration meant, but I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. And I had at that point had a journey around what my career might be. If it was going to be something clinical, I looked at medicine, I've looked at psychology, so lots of options. I was looking at EPIT. I didn't think I wanted to do EPIT, but needless to say, she said I should go meet this amazing professor, Richard Lichtenstein. So I said, okay, I'll go. I went, spoke with him, and affectionately we called him Doc. And he talked about the program, talked about what these careers were. I applied for SEP, and thank goodness I was accepted into the cohort. I ended up spending my time at what is now Michigan Medicine and working for the person at that time that was the administrator of the hospital, who, by the way, I just had breakfast with last Friday. But being able to see Larry Warren in action and how, he was able to have an impact, how he was able to have, impact both inside the organization as a leader, but also in the community. For me, it really was a spark around this as a career and a career path that I can take. And from there, I, confirmed what the requirements were to apply and be accepted into the program, did that. And again, fortunately, I was admitted into the program. And perhaps, as they say, the rest is history.
Denise, I think about your career and some of the things you've done at Henry Ford now and the leadership roles that you take in healthcare. Rich, I'm gonna go to you. I'm gonna go back to you. I know this wasn't the initial plan on the script as we were kind of going through it, but how many students did you have those conversations with, and what kind of sticks out in your mind about these students kind of coming to you and go, tell me a little bit about the program?
Well, I don't know the number, but I can tell you that as we started recruiting students for the program, I interviewed every single one of them. I made sure that they were, going to be able to get into grad school, first of all, but also that they really believed and wanted to make change in the healthcare system. There were not too many programs like this in 1986 when we started at SEP, and there was just a bunch of great students. I always used to tell the students not to get a big head that they got into the program, because there was another whole cohort who didn't get in who would have been just as good. So, it was amazing how many good people there were out there. And I was so upset that they were not getting into public health schools before this. If you looked around, there were very few Black people, Latino people interested in health disparities. In the early 80s, it just wasn't something that was happening. And I have no idea whether there was a cause and effect, but after we started this program, there are now lots of students interested in eliminating health disparities, people of color. It's just, that's the most rewarding part.
Yeah. And one of the people that you've influenced in that journey is another executive, Bill Manns. And I think, Bill, you head up Bronson Health System, and, that whole part's around there. What do you remember about your first journey into the SEP program?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So very much like Denise, I wasn't sure where I was headed, right, or what I wanted to do. Maybe I'd go to medical school, et cetera. And what I recall is that Dr. Lichtenstein talked about health disparities before it was really a thing, right? Now it's kind of cool and it's in vogue. And I had just, a friend and I had restarted a defunct chapter of the NAACP. So this notion of social justice. And so that was my mindset. And as I talked with Dr. Lichtenstein, and he talked about the summer enrichment program, or SEP as we call it, and really understanding the why behind health disparities. And that summer, I started to wrap my mind around, this is why this exists. One of my favorite stories about Dr. Lichtenstein, he once said to me, if you want to improve someone's health status, give him or her a job. And so I've held on to that throughout my career. And most recently, I was with Trinity, where, and if I've got time for a really quick story, I'll make it quick. I became the president of a hospital, and my wife and I were walking around the hospital, and she said, "Man, you've got a problem." And I said, "I'm not sure what you mean." And she said, "I see no people of color at this hospital. None. Not even your housekeepers." And I was like, "Wow." And I looked around and I said, "She's right." And so as I dug a little deeper, people were being recruited based on kind of who they knew, right? And so if you knew someone, slip them your resume, they go to HR, they get in. Well, fast forward, I was a fairly high profile leader of color in this community. And I go out in the community and I, believe it or not, go to the barbershop, and somebody would see me and they hand me their resume and say, "Hey, can you get me in?" And, I'd give them the CEO speech. "Hey, I can't assure you a job, but I can assure you somebody from our HR department will give you a call on Monday." Sounds reasonable, right? And I go to HR, give the resume. A few weeks later, this person get hired. And I say, wait, no, I don't know them. I just want you to follow up and do the right thing. Long story short, it allowed us to put something that, and actually there's a white paper about it, the evidence-based selection process. So hiring people based on their skill set to the extent humanly possible, taking bias out of the hiring process, right? And believe it, I was ostracized by the communities of color because they were looking for, "Oh, wow, we got a Black president. Surely he's going to give us the hookup." No, my thing was, we need to change the system. If we make a more equitable system, then more people can get in. And so I didn't know which way the numbers were going to go, right? We could have changed the system and fewer people of color got in, but do the right thing and see what happens. And so I still remember Doc, teaching me about health disparities and realizing that these barriers that are in place, it's not that people are bad, it's that the system is broken. And so I held on to that throughout my career. And that summer really helped me see things differently.
Bill, I had a laugh when you talked about the barber shop. I served on the board at Bon Secours in West Baltimore, and the CEO, Sam Ross, used to talk about the importance of the barber shop and making those connections with the community. And interesting that you kind of talk about that.
Absolutely.
I don't have much need for a barbershop anymore. But with that, let me go to Denise. And Denise, Bill kind of hit on some interesting parts. I just want to go back to you for a second because you graduated from the program and successful career. But I think the interesting part is right now you're also a preceptor to people in the SEP program. Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that another, to Bill's point, I think element of SEP, right? It's a community. And so even though, to Doc's point, it's well over 30 years old, many of us, regardless of which classes we were in, still stayed engaged in the program in some way. And, in early years, that may have simply be able to interview because we may not have had that capacity to be preceptors because we were not in roles in our organizations to be able to make those decisions. But I think as most of us have grown in our careers, we see a strong commitment to the program because we understand, right, the impact that it's going to have on the profession in terms of eliminating health disparities and really just getting like-minded people seeded into various organizations so that you have the discipline and the thinking that comes, through the training that they receive. So it has definitely been one of the highlights of my summers to be able to be a preceptor. And clearly in our organization, I definitely try to expose the participants to those that are earlier in their career than I am. It's kind of funny, like, as you all know, when I saw the question, I'm like, do you really want to know what I did in SEP? Like, it was a story of, fiction for people because they wouldn't believe it. Like, I didn't have a cell phone. And, I think for the first week, Doc probably paid for the lunches for myself and Artie Patel at the time because we got paid once a month at Michigan Medicine. But, needless to say, being a preceptor gives me the ability to give back. And try, to make that impact on people who are interested. And I have many students that I've had the opportunity to interact with. Some work for me now at Henry Ford Health System because they were, participants in SEP. They then went on, to School of Public Health, many to Michigan, but some went to other programs. But definitely as they've come back to be fellows or be in their career, there's a, longitudinal connection to being able to have been a part of that program.
The legacy is what you're talking about there. And Rich, I don't mean this to be a this is your life kind of story, which it feels a little bit like we're going to that. But what do you think about that? Like, you started this program back in 1986. Like, did it ever kind of come to you that there'd be this incredible legacy of CEOs, leading executives, 700 people are alumni of the program? I mean, your thoughts on the growth of it have to be inspiring.
What can I say? Yes, it is inspiring. And I'll tell you, the thing that inspires me the most are having people like Denise Brooks-Williams and Bill and people all over the country who are doing great things, who still keep in touch, who really want to help both with SEP and with the Department of Health Management and Policy. And you could ask for nothing better than that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm looking at the screen. I see Mark Herzog, who's another graduate of the Michigan program, and your alum stay involved and stay part of it. And I think the SEP program is a great way to kind of keep people linked in as well too. But with that, let me go to Charlita. And Charlita, you're looking at an incredibly successful program. You're looking at a 700 alumni. You're looking at a founder who is obviously a revered figure, but you're restructuring the program. So that's got it. Like, when you start to restructure something that's been so successful, that's got to give you a little bit of angst. But tell us a little bit about the restructuring process, what your intents are, where you think it needs to go, and what are some of the growth areas that you're looking at.
Sure. So great question. And I'll give you a little background. I actually came into the School of Public Health after working in HCOP programs for a number of years with the School of Dentistry at University of Michigan. And my first role in the department was with Rich as the coordinator for SEP. So I worked with him for a couple of years before I transitioned into the role in the department where I worked with admissions and student support and curriculum. So I'm bringing that experience that I had with him from years ago and understanding of the program and the importance of the alumni. So there's definitely a connection there. So I understand the importance. And when we thought about what's a new name we could have, how can we, change this? It was, we have to keep at the SEP component of this. That is the brand for us. Although there are some other programs out there, but this is our brand. Rich and SEP go hand in hand, essentially. And what we wanted to do is be more deliberate in what we did in the program. So to stand apart. And what we found with our applicants, not just to the summer enrichment program, but also to our actual master's program, the interest in health equity and eliminating health disparities is through a constant. So we knew that interest was there. And so how do we get the students who are coming to us with bachelor's in public health, healthcare administration? They have been exposed. There is no longer this, I've never heard of public health. I don't know what healthcare administration, does. These are second generation students, so not first gen students. These are students who have parents who are in leadership roles or connected to those in leadership roles. So we wanted to be sure that we acknowledged our new applicants that were coming to us and where they are. So that gave us an opportunity to be, again, deliberate with training around health equity and leadership and allow them to get some of these questions that they've come to us with answered, at least a spark of that answer, right? So we have applicants. We just finished a very successful application process where, as Rich mentioned earlier, we could have a cohort and another cohort. That's the interest level and the strength of the applicants that we receive. And we want to be sure to incorporate our faculty. So that's another a change in the restructuring because we want them to go to graduate school. The master's remains important to the field for as I advise students. The bachelor's in public health is fantastic, but in terms of moving and movement and career, the master's is going to be your best option. It's a terminal professional degree and you need it. And we want you to have it. So part of that restructure for SEP-HEALTHSpark was connecting to faculty. So right now we have core faculty in our department who are scheduled to meet with the students every week. So we've incorporated 8 hours of didactic learning into the program. So every 1 day per week, they will have a session with the faculty member, morning and afternoon, and they're answering some of these questions that the students come in with. Why does healthcare cost so much? Why can't I just call the phone number and get this change implemented today? I think this is the right thing to do. How do I work through this? What is health equity? What does it mean? How do you narrow it down to address the issues they're concerned with? So those are what we are focused on in this new, it's not new. What remains, the work, the applied practical experience remains. The mentorship, the networking, all of that remains. The connection to alum, and I like to say hi to Vaughn Williams, who's here and is one of our fantastic SEP alums. So those are the things that remain. So we have not restructured in a way that is vastly different from what has been happening, but we have just become more deliberate around health equity. What does that mean? And bringing in practitioners like Bill to say, this is what health equity means when I am working with, at my system. And having the other piece is that we are being more deliberate around exposing the students to Southeast Michigan, right? So they come to Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is not the end all be all in Southeast Michigan. So what's happening in Detroit? What is happening in Flint and the surrounding areas? And how do these systems work together with NGOs, health insurance, et cetera, to provide, health care to this population? So that's what not a restructure and an extreme change, just an addition, an enhancement to meet the needs of our students is what we've done.
It sounds like what you're doing is you're creating greater connections, that like, how do we link the faculty more in with the students so that there's an ongoing kind of structured process with it? How do we link the students in with alum to kind of create that structure and process? And Vaughn, a shout out to you while you're here. I don't mean to kind of put you on the spot. So if you feel like I am, but so you were a graduate of the program too. Currently the chief operating officer at Cedar Hill Regional Health at GW Health. I'm going to go to Denise Anthony in a second, but I just want to hear your thoughts about what the program meant to you as well.
No, echo all the previous sentiments. I mean, I was somebody who really didn't know what I was doing in terms of career field, and was introduced to the program when I was at Mount Sinai Health System in New York City, where I'm from. And one of the professors there was also an alumni of the SEP program. And so she connected me to Dr. Lichtenstein, to University of Michigan as a whole. And me at 20, kind of the light bulb went on, right? And I met Dr. Lichtenstein. He's from the Bronx, I'm from Brooklyn. And so we had that connection. And I was already in Wisconsin. So I was in the Midwest. I had familiarity with Michigan, but it just went on for me. And so when I got to the summer program, I also connected with alumni like Bill, like Denise, but also connected with my peers in the group, right? So my year, I had and met lifelong brothers and sisters who I still stay connected with to this day. When I get married, they'll be in my wedding group, right? And things to that level. And as I have advanced in my career and moved to different places, I'm always touching base and connecting with SEP alum on that next step and the next 2 steps. And so I sit here today as a testament and a product of all of what was shared before, and wouldn't be here or nowhere near if it wasn't for this program. And I'm happy to be a good friend, good mentee in connection with Dr. Lichtenstein, with Denise, with Bill, with Charlita, with our amazing leadership at Michigan and Denise and so on. So I'll stop there. I'm not the panelist, but I just want to give my 2 cents.
It kind of it hits me, the legacy around it all and the connections that it's created, and overall the social good that's kind of occurred out of this amazing program. And with that, let me go to you, Denise Anthony, at this point. So just to distinguish between Denise Brooks-Williams and so Denise Anthony. So Denise, you're the department head at the Department of Healthcare Management at the University of Michigan. In your words, why is this an important component of what your program does?
Well, you've already made the case of the impact, right, and these incredible alumni, and this is just the smallest number. They're just incredible. So that legacy, which comes from these numbers and what Rich Lichtenstein built over those 30 years of 700 plus leaders in the program. So 131 of them came to health management and policy, to our program, and got a degree at Michigan. So to have 131 incredible leaders from underrepresented groups in higher education, in healthcare, trained to be leaders in health equity, to go into the industry and transform it, that legacy is incredible for us as a department, but I think we all have to just pause and realize it's a legacy for the entire industry. 700 plus students went through SEP, 130 came to Michigan. That's fabulous for us, but that means 600, went to, our peer programs and became proud alumni of those programs. Although I have to say that what Vaughn was just talking about, what Bill and Denise mentioned about the strength of those networks among the SEP alumni mean the students who come to Michigan have our alumni network, but they can also draw on the SEP network, which is true for the students who go to our peer programs, which we're sorry to lose them to those, but of course they get to build on that legacy. So these hundreds of students have supported the recruitment of the more diverse student body, have brought in a strength and a commitment to health equity. Like Charlita mentioned, this is now, a much more widely recognized, important issue area in healthcare. But to have what SEP is doing is giving them the skills, the training, the experience to really become and enhance that, not only in their master's program when they come here or elsewhere, but when they go into leadership in healthcare. And, given that higher education and the field of healthcare still have significant challenges with the lack of diversity in leadership, this is absolutely a program that is a staggering achievement. Call on Dr. Lichtenstein again, but it's absolutely crucial to the field, our program and other programs like it.
Denise, the phrase that comes to my mind is, what is a great university? And a great university is concerned not just about educating its own students, but its role in the greater community and society. And like you said, 100 and I'm forgetting the exact number, I apologize, but 100 and some students went into the Michigan program, and 500 and some students went outward. That's what a great university does. It contributes to the society overall in that area. Now, let me ask you a more technical part. I think we have to do this as being part of the CAHME process. So the 2A2 is the criteria that you're evaluated with, and it's what the people who kind of looked at the Michigan program and said, hey, this is a strength, wisely so, I think, on their part. But not what did you do to receive a strength, because obviously what you did to receive a strength is present here on it, but what did you do to prove this is a strength to the site visitors, which is really what site visitors do. They look for the proof. So what was it that kind of, what switched them over?
Well, the School of Public Health here at the University of Michigan really does a terrific job in tracking the students from application to admission to enrollment to graduation and post graduation. Of course, CAHME, some of that is part of our accreditation responsibilities too. So shout out to CAHME for making that a priority. But we also track the percentage of students coming in from underrepresented backgrounds. And so really having that from application to admission to enrollment, to graduation, right? The recruitment and retention of students from underrepresented backgrounds into the MHSA, but also into our joint program, our MPH program, we could show a direct connection to the role of SEP and the pipeline of diverse and underrepresented students into our program, and in fact, even demonstrate then how that has been successful. And just another way, I think we had the ability to demonstrate the impact of the SEP program on our program continuing is exactly what you're seeing here today. Our alumni who have not only achieved these incredible leadership positions in healthcare and public health in all aspects of the industry, continue to give back in significant ways. They show up and help us out in panels like this, but that's almost nothing compared to they teach classes, they mentor students, they network with our students, they advise us on new programs. These people who are here today, including Dr. Lichtenstein, you know, as the program was being revised, and Charlita Daniels, who has just created an incredible program to continue the legacy, but now grow it for the future. Who did she call on? She called on these people and many others who said, how can I help? When can I help? What can I do? I mean, there was no hesitation. And as soon as some people found out some people were helping, others stepped up. I mean, it's just an incredible legacy to have. And, you know, shout out to people like Mark Herzog and other alumni who don't come from SEP, but we do have an incredible, just an incredible gift in the generosity and the commitment of our alumni. And I think that strength, demonstrating that involvement, was something that the CAHME team recognized as an incredible value that keeps those practitioners coming into our program in all kinds of ways that our current students really value. You know, next week they're going to have a networking opportunity with 15 incredible alumni leaders who are coming, and so that kind of an impact is, you know, we've got the metrics, we've got the numbers, which are absolutely important to show that we are helping address this lack of still continuing underrepresentation of leaders of color, of leaders from, you know, diverse backgrounds into healthcare, but we are also doing it in that hands-on, the engagement of our alumni and these practitioners in our program. So we are incredibly grateful and lucky.
Okay. Well, let me, Denise, I do have a follow-up question to you on that, but what I want to just ask everyone who's out there now, if you have any questions, please pop them over into the chat. I've got a chat box that I'm kind of monitoring as things are going along, and Melissa's looking at it as well. If I don't see it, Melissa will say to me, Anthony, make sure you look at this question. So if you have any questions, pop them into the chat. But Denise, let me kind of go a little bit of a follow-up with what you said. And Charlita, you can certainly chime in on this too, is, you know, there's a rich set of reasons why people go to Michigan. I mean, you know, there's a whole gamut of things about why you would select to go to the University of Michigan. Do you think the SEP program is one of the more significant parts that contribute to people going, yeah, this is why I want to go there?
I think absolutely. We have the students who come, and the summer experience in Michigan, like at lots of universities, because it is lots of people aren't there. It's not it's a very different kind of experience. It's a little bit more intimate experience, and that can feel really important and special for students to have, that makes them feel more at home, I think, when they come to the program. So, you know, lots of ways to recruit and try to reach out into communities and students who to bring them into our program. But the summer experience is unique and special. What do you think, Charlita?
I was going to say, how do you get the word out, Charlita? What's the ways that you help promote it externally?
Externally, the alumni are huge. A resource around promoting. I'm going to Rich again and saying that we're having the program. He still has his contacts and connections. One of the things we've seen in the school, there are more summer programs than ever before. And there's a huge pool of students, undergraduates, who are looking for opportunities in the summer. And we promote the opportunities and the students appear. They are there and looking and wanting to attend the programs. And so that part is easy in a sense because there's great interest. And so we're also able to distinguish why we needed to distinguish what we do from what other summer programs are doing as well. And most of the applicants that we received for the program this summer were interested in health equity. They were like, this is the opportunity to come to Michigan. I've never been to Michigan. I've never been outside of my state, or, you know, I've never been up north. They called it up north. So things like that, just to exposing to different, the different states and areas and populations. And that gets them interested in Michigan. And once we have them interested in Michigan, the summer absolutely helps because it is beautiful in Ann Arbor in the summertime. It's warm. The campus is beautiful. You can find a parking space most of the time, you know, things that, you know, are appealing. And so once they're experience the campus in Ann Arbor, the conversation turns to you can see yourself here. And it does help to have other summer programs and, you know, present so they can see more students who are interested in the same things that they are. And that builds the network and the connection. So when we have students applying, I'm on the admissions committee for our master's program, and we see students who are together and I wasn't in the program, I was in a different program, but I heard about it because I lived in the residence hall with this group of students. I'm interested. So those are the things that, you know, work in our favor, and we really appreciate and have capitalized on for a number of years to get students into the program.
If I could just, could I just build just briefly on exactly what Charlita just said, because I bet some of the others here from peer programs they might have other summer programs that are happening, and adding one in that's really focused on health equity and healthcare and public health is going to be probably different and unique. There's lots of programs focused on research or clinical experience, and they talk to each other. You know, that, like what Charlita just said, the ability to learn. So some of the students who might be in the other programs who said, yeah, they're like Denise Brooks-Williams. I didn't know what healthcare administration was or is. Now I know a little bit. I want to come be in your program. So certainly encourage people to think about that with their own summer programs and why something focused on this is important, I think, for the industry.
Oh, Denise, really good point. I remember when I walked into the office when I was going for my graduate degree, and I said, health administration, tell me about that. What's that about? And, you know, that was my experience of getting it. Well, this sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll sign up. And Rich, let me ask you a question on this. You heard all the comments from folks like Bill and Vaughn, Denise. Let's pretend I'm a new program. And I'm taking this from one of the questions that are in there. And let's pretend I'm a new program. And I was fortunate to hire your clone. Someone cloned you without knowing about it, Rich. So what would your clone do to start up a new program? And what are some advice that you would give to some of the people out here who are listening and go, this sounds like a really good idea. I'm committed to this process. What do I do to start up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let me just say that I don't even know if people who are watching this know this, but all of our students have externships or internships in organizations that we think will expand their knowledge of health equity. So one of the first things I had to do was call people in the Detroit, Ann Arbor area, administrators, and ask them if they would both take a student for the summer and also pay for that student, and pay not only the money that the student would get as a stipend, but also to help cover our administrative costs. So having those preceptors is key. And then I would say, really now, I would say you should talk to your faculty, make sure you have allies, people who want to commit themselves to working with the students in the summer, things like that. So I didn't have that luxury. And I don't mean to disparage the Michigan faculty or Michigan at all, but in 1986, very few faculty members were interested in helping me. They just had to publish or perish, and they're not going to do something that doesn't help that, you know. So I think getting people on board and showing them how they could, you know, do this and still get promoted, I think that's a very important thing. You know, it's interesting, when I started this, I realized that some of our best students didn't do well on the GREs, which everybody was required to take at the time. Now, I'm really glad that that's been done away with now, but I was advocating that for like 20 years, get rid of it because of the biases in those tests. And so I started setting up a program where students could get the Kaplan GRE course during the summer to help them do better on the GREs. And in the more recent years, there was actually a boot camp where people were being trained how to do well on the GREs. We don't have to worry about that. But, you know, there are all these things. We have to rent like 6 or 7 vans to get the students to where they work, you know. I mean, there are all these things that are logistics, and they are hard, you know.
But Denise Brooks-Williams, let me go to you and build off of Rich's comments. Let's pretend you were the clone of Rich at that point, and you had to start a new program from scratch. Having been an alumni who would go through it, what advice would you give to people?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think the blueprint was so well done, right? And I think to Rich's point, clearly I could see, right? Because ultimately I went into the program, so I could see how much of it was him, you know, versus perhaps, you know, his colleagues. So maybe one point of advice would be, if you can, you know, build allyship early in terms of having other faculty that you can identify that are committed. And I think to his point, so many years later, there's so much greater appreciation for what, you know, he did and how it's being replicated. So I think over time, and you see this even with HealthSpark, right? There has been innovation in the program to make it, you know, incredibly relevant. So I think look at what the demand and the need is and make sure that you have that support both inside your program, but also with your alumni network. The one thing I would add, Anthony, when Denise was talking, I almost wanted to jump in to say what another just tremendous element of this program that I don't think perhaps was intentional, but it's a great byproduct, is that communities were created, right? Someone put in the chat, right? What do you do if you have limited diversity in a department? And that could be faculty or students, right? But I think when you have a cohort from something like SEP, regardless of whether those students all matriculate through your program together, they still will have each other. So you have that community of people who kind of understand what you're seeking to do. And that's honestly what keeps a Bill and a, you know, Denise connected to Vaughn, who is generations, you know, behind us, but ahead of us professionally, and get those jobs faster now. Because, you know, we want to see that, right? Where the groups that come after us can go even faster than we did because of that community and that network. So staying committed and invested so that you make any bumps that we had go away, right? So
I think of one of the comments, again, from a Michigan grad who said to me, diversity has to be deliberate. Yeah. It's something you have to really think about.
Exactly. Intentional.
Yeah.
Anthony, I would like to add for around allyship in the department, for the attendee who asked the question about what do you do if you have very few department members. And so I've been in this department for 14 years. And one of the, you know, the things was I showed up as the only Black person there in this, in the role, and, working with admissions. And what I found is that, and worked with Rich for a number of years around the difficulty around the GRE, why we can't get, students past the, 60th percentile, even with the course, and there's bias there, and there are things that we had to take into account. But one of the things that I found, we didn't have huge diversity in our department either. But what I did find is that building relationships with faculty who may not know everything about why this is so important, or how it's done, but understanding it's important. And so through this is important, our current admissions chair I've worked with for a number of years, 8 years, each year was a different, let's consider that around merit. Participation in SEP is merit. It's, that should be considered in our holistic review. Let's eliminate the GRE for these reasons. And that has led to us having more diverse, more equitable, and strong classes and cohorts that have come in. And that, I think that is a benefit. So you don't need to be Black or Latino or any of that to do any of these programs. Your students don't have to be Black or Latino to be interested in health equity either, because our program participants come from all backgrounds, and their shared goal of addressing health inequities is what connects them to us. So, and I think when Bill mentioned earlier, you make a more equitable system, more people get in. And that has been what I've been working on for the last 10 years in H&P. And so I hope that we see that the classes and cohorts are very different than they were 15 years ago because of that, these efforts that have not been, we're doing this, it's been an organic, this is the committee, this is what we're talking through and working on, and we've met these goals, and don't get a chance to talk about that very often. Mm-hmm. So I just think that was important. Thank you, Bill, for another. Bill has been dropping all kinds of fantastic, notable quotables. So, but that was another one I'm adding to the list, Bill. Thank you.
You're raising the socioeconomic status of individuals, improving the health of the community by giving, someone mentioned earlier, I forget who it was, but giving people jobs, right, Bill? Thank you. That barbershop thing, right? So giving people jobs and then continuing to improve the health of the community at this point. Bill, I'm gonna go to you for some comments, and then I'll end with Rich. I'll end with you with just some final kind of thoughts on it. So Bill.
Yeah, no, I think that's really appropriate to end with Rich. I mean, going back to your, if we could clone Rich Lichtenstein, that courage and the tenacity and the long-term vision, right? I think that long-term vision, 30 years later, we can look back and say, wow, this is successful. But being in the class that first year, his willingness to roll up his sleeves and do whatever it took to make a difference and to lead to this level of systemic change across the industry has been huge. And so I just want to take this opportunity to say thanks, Rich. And Anthony, I forgot the punchline of my story in the barbershop. So when I left that particular hospital, 38% of the new hires were people of color.
Wow. Just
by changing the system. And so I just want to say thanks, Rich, and thanks for this opportunity.
Rich, we'll end with you, but I wanted a quote from another university. You can see how much Michigan kind of influenced me in my career. A guy named Doug Peters, who I had the opportunity to work with when he was the CEO at Jefferson Health System many years ago, used to say, Anthony, being a pioneer isn't always great because the pioneers get shot in the rear. And Rich, I understand what you tried to do. And, I could understand, and it's not necessarily, innovation is never easy. And you innovated and you persevered, you endured through the process, and you created a program that's affected not just the students in Michigan, but students and people in the communities around the country. Your final thoughts on this before we sign off.
Well, so this has all been heady for me. I appreciate everybody saying nice things about me. I just want to say, well, why did this work? So people have asked this question, because if you look on the screen, I'm not a BIPOC person. I'm not a person of color. I'm a Jewish kid from New York. And people say, well, how did you do this? I said, I just was myself. I was honest. I loved the people in the program. I did everything I could to help them. And, and I think that pays off. I think that pays off. And it wasn't like a side gig that I was doing. This was really coming from my heart. And I really think that made a difference.
Thank you, Rich. You certainly did.
Thank you for watching today's webinar in our CMC series. For more information or to view past webinars, slides, or to register for upcoming webinars, please go to www.cahme.org/CMC. Thank you.